Whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Interesting. I'm just here to listen.
All right.
I don't
We'll let
think
you
I've
do
got
that.
anything to say.
How'd the meeting go the other night?
It was good. It was a good meeting. Wow.
Missed out on pizza.
I know, but I had the flu all last week. And finally Wednesday I felt so-so, so I went to fire board, and I shouldn't have. And then I had two different meetings on Thursday, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't work.
And when you're in
I don't
the.
blame you.
All right, we are back from lunch. It is 1:30. We will close this regular meeting and open a public hearing for a resolution to submit a TSEP application to replace up to 4 crossings at Deep Creek with bridges. I did, yes. And I'll just read the resolution so that you guys are aware. It has been posted in the courthouse in 2 different offices. Broadwater County is applying to the Montana Department of Commerce for financial assistance from the Treasure State Endowment Program, TSEP, to replace up to 4 crossings of Deep Creek in Broadwater County with new bridge structures. And whereas Broadwater County has the legal jurisdiction and authority to construct, finance, operate, and maintain the Deep Creek bridge structures, and whereas Broadwater County agrees to comply with all state laws and regulations and the requirements described in the TSEP application guidelines, and those that will be described in the TSEP application, now therefore be it resolved that the presiding officer of the Broadwater County Commission is authorized to submit this application to the Montana Department of Commerce on behalf of Broadwater County to act on its behalf and to provide such additional information as may be required. And this has been put together by WWC Engineering and the Broadwater County Engineer. So with that, we'll take any public comment that may be out there.
I
Dwayne?
need to address the bench if you would.
Absolutely.
I'm stuck to my coat. As most of you know, I'm Dwayne Halverson. I live up Deep Creek, and I don't have any ill feelings towards anyone, so may I address you by your first name?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Madam
I like your shirt.
Chairperson Laura, and Commissioner Elaine, Commissioner Franklin. So anyway, I got some paperwork I'd like to hand out, because what I'm here today to do is to sort of go through the FEMA grant that was set up by Bill Finer from the 2010 or 2011 flood and the mitigation thereof. So I'd like to cover that whole thing and tie in with the bridge resolution.
Okay.
So if you can bear with me, I'd appreciate it. So, I'd like to hand out some paperwork. And I know you've all seen this before because it's part of that grant. But if you just kind of keep them in mind, the way I'm handing these out is probably the way I'll discuss them.
Okay.
And so, like I said, I know you've seen them because they actually come from the grant itself. And you can keep these in your waste paper file if you'd like. And so forth.
Thank you.
This one I'm handing out, that third piece is actually a draft letter from the Conservation District that was sent to Sean and Mike and some other agencies involved in this whole process. So that's where that's coming from. And this, and I know you just received this letter from Mike Conkey here recently. And so I know you have that too, but I'm just going to address that out. So this is the tentative project schedule as we have it at the latest go around as to how we're going to implement in phase 1. And so I'll be drawing some attention to that too. The first part of this that I gave that first sheet, this was the original design of the project as far as the mitigation projects that would be involved in the funding thereof. And that hasn't really changed. You know, we still have that on the list, so to speak, as what we're going to try to do. But there's a big but in there, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The second one I gave you was the total project cost. And you all pretty well know that the project cost was about $1.7 million. The FEMA part was 1.3 million roundabout, and then of course our funding match was 25% of that, which is $443,000. In the phase one, it has a breakdown how that would occur, and that has to be done by October of this year. And so we're involved in the phase one right now. The phase two project will be designed as phase one's going on. And that TBD there is to be determined. As you can see, even though we have it listed on that first page we just discussed, it's still up for grabs. We're not sure exactly what's going to take place on that. We're not determined what priority is going to be put into those different categories that are under for the mitigation process. So we're not sure how it's going to be determined there. As a matter of fact, we have maybe some problems with this because the Conservation District has the 319 grant, which is about a $400,000 grant. And that is dealing with the Deep Creek Restoration Project. Some of these might collide. We have to be careful to have duplication here and spending money that the county shouldn't be spending. And same thing for the Conservation District. So we have to be careful that we have communication. It seems like we don't have enough communication from the top down to the bottom. We've got a lot of different agencies involved, a lot of different people involved, as well as, of course, there's the Broadwater County. But what kind of communication are we actually getting involved in? Do we really know what's happening? Do we really know what's going on with these projects as we have for mitigation on the original FEMA contract obligations that we have? Do we really know what's going on there? And I would suggest to you that we really don't. And so therefore, I think we have to be careful about our communication. Also, since 2011, a lot of these things have changed. You know, they've either changed because of natural healing, they've changed because people went to work on those projects and they've already been completed. And then, of course, we also got some situations here where a lot of it's private. Do we want the county to be involved in private restoration of some kind or mitigation? I think we have to be careful of that. I've got a piece of paper here I want to use for discussion in this, and I know you've seen this information, but I just want to basically go ahead and use this to show you some of the conflict we might have for the mitigation process. The first one I'm going to deal with is the Frost residents. The Frost is out there about the 11-mile mark out on Highway 12 East. I'm just going to read one sentence within the paragraph, and these are all the mitigations involved here, and I know you've seen these before. I'm just going to read one of the sentences. It says, a secondary objective would be to provide localized sediment removal, the undersized culvert stream crossing, and the upstream erosion protection improvements near the structure that may be a primary cause of flooding, and mitigation of these effects will provide reduced water levels. Well, during that flood, that culvert is gone. That's no longer there. There's a little Grand Canyon where that culvert was. You'd have to have Noah's flood to flood that now. It is so deep. So far as any kind of restriction in that flow, it's all gone. I was involved in building the bridge where that culvert was. That bridge is completed. It's been paid for by FEMA already. Now that tune, if you look at that, that was $196,000 and some cents. And so that's already been taken care of. Now, there are some things in mitigation could be done there yet. And I'm not so sure that we would have been involved. For example, maybe some riprap around that new bridge area that we built would help. Also, Ron Spoon, Fish and Game, would like to do some dike work on one end of that, just east of the bridge, because that dike in there kind of stabilizes the water flow. And he would like that to be done. But we don't know exactly what's coming out of that project now, because the main thrust of it has been completed. And so that can be a problem that we need to ask some questions about. Just down from that is the old Deep Creek Restaurant and Bar, and you all know what that's like. Okay, if I would read just the first go-around on that, it simply says, recent flooding has resulted in water entering the floor level of this structure from recent flooding events. The water level was approximately 1 foot above the base floor level. That's built in a floodplain, folks. I mean, it can't be more of a floodplain than that is. You've got that walkway bridge there on the, basically it's on the southwest side of it. You walk across that bridge 5 yards further, you're in the house. yet the stream runs right around that house and that area in private land. So the mitigation that would happen in there, there's some things they suggest that would have to be, I would think, in my mind's eye, it shouldn't be on the private land if we're involved as a county. They would take care of that themselves. So there's something we need to kind of keep an eye on. There was one other thing in there, they've already crossed this out, but I will mention because it was part of this mitigation project, and that of course was the North Fork Bridge itself. And that's been taken care of, as you all probably know, by Montana DOT. And that's, they're footing the bill on that and paying the price. So those are just some of the things, and there's a lot of other things in here that can be bogus as well. So when we look at those to be determined, what are the priorities to determine what are we going to do? And I guess I haven't come across any particular real answer to that, because I've been in a lot of meetings with Sean Higley, who is, as you know, is our proposed engineer from WWC. And Sean told me that what he needed to do is to walk through all these mitigation projects and see what needs to be done. But that hasn't happened, as of now that I know of anyway. And he's in Hawaii right now, so that's not going to happen for a while. So consequently, when you look at this, how are we determining what these projects are going to be? Which ones are we going to get involved in? And most of you know that these projects are kind of up for grabs, and somebody has to make some decisions. And I think maybe you as a Board of Commissioners need to be kind of, I guess, aggressive in saying what is going on, what are you using for determination, what are your priorities, which ones are we going to do or not. And in fact, we've been real concerned with that situation for the county as well, not for necessarily the county, but for the Conservation District. And I've got a letter here that's submitted by the Conservation District. You have a copy of it in front of you there. And it's, I think it was the third thing I handed out to you. And I'd like to start from number 2. Now this was sent out, Denise Thompson wrote this up, and we sent out to Mike and Sean and some other agencies as well. And if you look at number 2, I'm going to start at the end of that line, number 2. It says, it would be very advantageous for the county, BCD, Deep Creek residents, and LAG. Now LAG is a Landlord's Advisory Group, and BCD, of course, is the Broadwater Conservation District. And I would think FEMA and DNRC as well to see a formal written document clarifying to the extent possible how the Deep Creek FEMA project, or we say FEMA, has evolved from the application submitted by Bill Feiner to what it appears to be today, a far more realistic conservation project. We all know that many eyes are watching over Broadwater County as a whole. Even though we, BCD and LAG, know you, Sean and Mike, are approaching Deep Creek differently, a written document between Montana FEMA and DNRC, for that matter, Sean, Mike, County Commissioners, and LAG and BCD, stating the adjustments or anticipated adjustments, both in project and money, would be extremely helpful in easing minds, protecting the county, showing accountability, and articulating Broadwater County's intent and desire to move forward in a responsible, frugal manner. We understand field work and assessment are going to be vital to streamline all of this. Nevertheless, I think we can all agree a number of the proposed projects either do not warrant time, money, and don't exist, have already been completed, funded by FEMA, such as the Frost Bridge, are going to be funded elsewhere, such as the North Fork Bridge. And of course, we already said Montana DOT is paying for that. Sean and Mike, please let me know what you think, and if such a document addendum can be attached to the FEMA DNRC applications submitted to the respective agencies. I know with all the Conservation District grants, I must submit project reports, articulate any project funding changes, request any and all amendments for prior approval and signature. Agencies are very in tune with what is going on. I would think FEMA would be the same. I know DNRC is. Thank you for your time. And so that's been sent. Mike got a copy of that, and the other people got copies of that. We haven't had much feedback on that yet, so we don't know really what's coming out from this request. But maybe that sort of could be some of the same thing that perhaps we could do, or you could be involved in doing, and having, what I would say is my recommended suggestion would be to call all the people involved in this process, from FEMA, Montana Disaster Emergency Services, DNRC, all the people, Sean, Mike, Conservation District, LAG, all those people to a common meeting, and let's say, hey, let's see what we're going to do. what are these projects that we're gonna be working on? Can you give us the projects so that we can get the projects written down, know what we're gonna do, get an assessment on those, so we know we can get a cost on them. And then we know we have a base thing that we can work with from the county, and that base would give us our 25% cost on each one of those mitigation projects. Now, there may not be hardly any of those go forward, and that's my net comment. You all got a letter from Mike, I just gave it to you, and you already seen that one, and this has to do with our resolution today to a great degree. And so consequently, if we can come together with all those agencies I just suggested, especially, FEMA, and I don't know that FEMA really cares a whole lot, because they have an X amount of dollars that they care about, that's like 1.3. And if we don't exceed that, if we stop these mitigation projects because of no priority or no need to or whatever, and they don't happen, then therefore FEMA might be willing to move some of that money that was proposed for those projects into the account for the bridges. We may not have to worry about going out and seeking other funding and other grants if we're willing to talk to those people and see if they will shift that money, because we have the money already there. But what are we going to do with the money? And that's the key here. So if we ask those people, can you shift that money over to the bridges? They might be willing to do that. Now, I know Mike's letter didn't indicate that that's the case, but have we asked? Those are hard questions we could ask. You say, hey, what can we do? We got $1.3 million. We also have part of this we have to pay for. But if you're willing to help out to a great extent, we don't have to worry about all these other sub-grants and so on that we're talking about. And so my suggestion would be to carry that out. Or we could do like the last page I just gave you. This is the schedule. We can just go ahead and status quo. We can wait for the projects to come up, whoever decides how they're going to be done, and whether it be Mike and Sean and whoever. And they decide what projects would need to be mitigated, and then we can see what our cost is, and we can pay that cost. But there can be curves in there. We don't have anything set down in black and white, so to speak. We're just waiting for it to happen, and then as it happens, we pay the price. But we don't know if there's a curve in there where we may have to pay a lot more money, just like we do on these bridges. And that's why I'm suggesting if we get these things all ironed out before we start taking money from the county, we kind of know where we're at. We have a base figure we can work with. And that's kind of where I'm coming from in this. I feel like there's a lot of loose ends here. It's convoluted to the extent that we really don't know where we're at with this whole project. And I don't want to miss the project. I mean, we have only until October to start phase 1. And I want to see it happen, because if we go past that date, it's not that we lose the money, but we lose the cycle. We have to wait for another year to get cycled. We have to apply again, more paperwork, more meetings, more hang-ups. So we can get this done rather quickly and get it put together and still get involved in phase 1, then that'll make, the FEMA people happy and the Montana DES people happy and most everybody else happy if it's all written down and we have some directions what we're going to do and what's going to cost us. And that's what I have, folks. And I want you to spend my money futilely. I'm careful. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know if I can answer any questions. I'm involved in a lot of the stuff over the last few months, but I'm not really on the inside. Mike Conkey is much more on the inside. I feel sorry for Mike. He's so busy and he's so good at his job. And he's so busy and he's worried about floods coming in spring. He doesn't have a lot of time to go out and walk the walk. And that's kind of why I questioned Sean personally in some of the meetings. What are you going to do to figure out the priorities on these? And he said, well, I'm going to go out and walk it out and assess it and see what we need to do, if anything. But, Mike is so busy. And he's the one's the coordinator. We got to be careful we don't do the Sean thing like the Bill Finer thing. We got to make sure we have Mike involved in there as that person that's actually coordinating this thing. And so we have to be careful of that, but Mike is busy. And I know he wants to quit. And you know that too. We're looking for somebody else, but you might have put a carrot out there, give him a raise or something. But anyway, he's doing a good job. But his time is limited, and he doesn't have much time to do this. And that's what this takes. To get the assessment and to get the priorities of the projects, someone has to go out and look at them. Otherwise, you just mark them off. And I don't think FEMA wants like that position either. They want to make sure we're doing it right. So that's where I'm coming from. I know I went by past my 3 minutes. Thank
No,
you,
that's
Mark, for giving more
absolutely
time.
fine,
I
absolutely,
appreciate that,
yeah.
you know.
That's exactly the same feeling I had with a lot of stuff you're saying, like that Clopton Bridge, 100,000 for a bridge, and all we really need is some riprap there, and this frost thing, and this North Fork. Everything gotta be reassessed. I said that this morning. It's gotta be reassessed. And like you named as priorities, which ones are gonna be,
Right.
and I think you're absolutely right on that.
So I
I
don't
guess
mind-
that's up to Sean to do that then?
Well, Sean, you know, he's just the engineer, and Sean will have to look at to see what we're looking at.
Right, he has to
concerning-
make the decision.
Yeah, he has to make decisions concerning what needs to be done, and, you know, he has a more of a ballpark figure of cost,
Right.
and so on. But Mike has to be out there as the coordinator, because he has to make sure that he agrees with what Sean's got in mind, because you know, you don't want the fox watching over the chickens. And if you've got the same person, you know, out there saying what needs to be done here, it's gonna cost you this, well, then there needs to be somebody in there that acts as a go-between. Say, no, that's not right, Sean. You know, we don't need to do that, and it's not gonna cost that much. Somebody needs to be out there, and Mike's a good one to be out there. But I'm just simply saying that, yeah, we need to figure out, you know, the project, the assessment of the project for cost, and then we know then what our base is for the 25%, if it even is that, you know. But FEMA might hold the rules to that pretty close, I don't know. I don't know that well about how FEMA works on the inside, but when they say 25%, they usually mean it. So, anyway, I thank you for your time. If any of you have any other questions, I'll try. If not, well, I'll see you next time around.
All right, any further questions?
I don't have any.
No,
All right.
unless you wanna work as a coordinator there.
No, I'm good.
Does it have to be Mike? The next one, does it have to be Mike?
Well, it
Or
doesn't,
could
you know, you've
an
always
individual-
selected him as your DES coordinator,
Right.
and this was basically that project. And that's why, you know, Bill is a coordinator for the DES, he got the thing started, so Mike sort of takes over on that position. And so that's why it's been done that way. You could probably pick somebody else to be a coordinator of this. I don't know that there's a problem with that. You'd have to probably check with Montana DES people and FEMA and so on, see if that's okay. But you're gonna have somebody, perhaps in June, that would be different anyway, if Mike decides to go do something else like farm. So I don't know. But I think you could probably pick a person to be that individual that you're just suggesting, Franklin, but I don't know, like I said, I don't know the inside workings of those agencies that are involved in this grant, and they may want to always be kept up on top of that, just like we should be kept on top of this stuff, like I've suggested, you know. We're always waiting for somebody to come in and feed us. In fact, that's like any kind of board that we have, whether it be a Congress, or whether it be a Senate, or whether it be a Board of Commissioners. We're kind of at a situation where we have to have input to see what we're gonna do. Well, input can sometimes be connected to an agenda. And sometimes you don't hear everything you need to hear. But they have a certain agenda that they want you to cooperate with, and that might mean money, and so on and so forth. It happens in the Congress, happens in the Senate. That's how come we have the Obama health care plan. They want to get it implemented, and then after that, we'll study it. And sometimes that happens with any body, it's a political body. So we don't always know what's going on until other people come in and say, hey, did you know about this, or did you know about that? And so then we get a well-rounded idea of what we want to do as a governing body. And so that's why I think that I'm asking for more involvement with you folks into these agencies and these people and seeing where are we with this? You know, because this is costing taxpayers money. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, you know, I want you to be frugal with my money. I also want the project, there's some good ideas on this project, like the bridges and so on. There are some good things there. I'm not saying let's all throw out the baby and the baby water. You know, let's keep what we can, but let's do it wisely. Let's do it, let's conceive a good plan. And that's where I'm coming from.
How far along,
Absolutely, yeah.
how far along is DOT with the North Fork Bridge?
They were supposed to start that project, the first phase, there's 3 phases, they're supposed to start the first phase this year. I've seen nothing happen. I don't know where the funding became difficult to achieve. I heard they had the funding for phase 1, but nothing's happened yet. And here, they may be deciding to wait for the spring flood. I don't know. They may decide to see what happens there and then start the phase. So there's a lot of time yet that can get going on this, you know. But they're gonna do the upper bridges first. The lower part won't be done like you're talking about, the lower bridge. It probably won't be done until the latter phase. The phase 2 is that lower part of the bridges and the work, and then phase 3 is gonna be recovering that road. Going back in there and doing it as it should have been done maybe years ago, supposedly. And so, but I haven't seen any indication. I had some communication with some of those people out of Bozeman and so on, and as of yet, they haven't revealed why they're holding out, but I suspect it's probably because of the spring flood runoff. And they'll wait to see what happens and then start after that. So, but I know the phase 2 will probably deal with what you're talking about, Elaine. So,
I just remember how bad it was in 2011.
yeah. Right. Yeah, and then that area that we're talking about, and the bridge you're especially talking about, some down that area, that's gonna be the worst part anyway. That whole thing has just been filled in, the sediment's filled in. If we get any kind of high water at all, we're gonna be looking for Noah's Ark, you know, to cross there. And I'm gonna get probably cut off, because that's below our place, so I don't know how I'm gonna get out of there anyway, but hopefully that we have a good melt. Cold mornings, not too warm in the afternoon, absolutely no rain, minimal sunshine.
Now, you're talking utopia, you know.
And we won't even know there's snow out there. But if we get the rains and we get the 80, 90-degree weather, yeah, you better have a boat. So, anything else, folks?
Not from me, anything from you guys?
No, I think I'm
No?
okay.
I think so.
All right.
Okay, well, you keep the paperwork for your waste cans or wherever you place that stuff, so, anyway, because I don't need that.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your input as well. What you've said has been heard, and I think one of the first things we should do is start requiring a month meeting like we had early on. I met with DES at the conference that we had in February, end of February, on this a little bit. So, you know, there are things going on, but you're absolutely right. We need to bring all entities together to the same table at the same time so that there aren't pieces of information in different blocks.
Right.
Everybody needs to be hearing the same thing at the same time, and I think it'll get rid of a lot of the, I think it'll answer a lot of the questions. Because this is a big project, there's a lot of questions.
Right. And I would suggest that you don't ask for the deputies, that you ask for the leadership to come.
Yeah,
When the ones that actually make the decisions, not the ones that just carry out the decisions.
no, we had Ken Atwood,
Okay,
At the
yes,
table,
I was
yeah.
gonna suggest those kind of folks.
yeah, and
Right.
Ed Tinsley,
Okay.
Steve Connect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we went to the top,
Okay, good.
yeah,
Because they kind of make the final suggestion, the other people just carry it out, so.
absolutely. You want the decision makers,
Exactly.
not the messengers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah,
all righty, well, thank you for your time, and I hope it's been some help.
absolutely,
It has.
So,
yeah.
and that's spoken, now, I should have also said, this is from a concerned citizen. I have to be careful I don't speak for the Conservation District or the Land Advisory Group, Land Advisory Group, even though I'm a member of all those, and I'm a member of, you know, the DES and all that. But I'm speaking basically for myself, just as a citizen. So don't go say Dwayne said.
Okay. Unless we say concerned citizen, Dwayne.
There you go.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you very much. Right, is there any more public comment?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Tim Ravendall. I want to personally thank Mr. Halverson for bringing forward the concerns that are being brought by himself as a citizen. And I've heard that same concern brought up by multiple citizens. Broadwater County and specifically the Deep Creek FEMA project brought questions of accountability, as we all know. And I think it's really incumbent upon the commission to take the lead in making sure that we go the extra mile to avoid any more or any further questions of accountability on this. We do absolutely need to have a responsible official at that level, whether it be Mike Conkey or a new person, because when you start to ask questions and it gets shifted to several different people, you really don't, you as a commission and we as citizens don't have really that true opportunity to be at the table to find out what's really going on. And so it's really important to make sure that we have that responsible official to make sure that we're not making duplication in funding. And the TSEP grant, really by face value from what has been discussed in public meetings so far, in some ways, and I'll go as a stretch here would say it implies that we're buying not only another source of funding for the same project, but we're actually duplicating some of the projects because we don't know, as Mr. Halverson pointed out, what really is a mitigated need. So I guess it's my position as a citizen and a taxpayer that the commission, before moving forward on applying for further grants, which the bottom line I need to also emphasize is these grants are tax dollars. And we need to make sure that we know for sure what we're buying and what product we're getting. And right now, Mr. Halverson very well pointed out, we really don't know. Things have changed since 2011, and they've changed dramatically, either by natural healing or by projects, as he pointed out. So we need to be on top of this before we start asking for the taxpayers to be spending money on projects, or worse yet, duplication on funding for the same projects. I would like to specifically ask a question that I haven't had a chance to get the research done on my own as a citizen to find out what is the source of funding that the Department of Commerce is using for this TSEP grant. I understand it's administered through the Chamber of Commerce, but where does that funding originate? Is it state funding? Is it federal funding? Is it private donations? Where does that funding come from? And the reason I ask the question is because we have to be very careful to understand what the rules of grants are before we move forward. Because if we don't understand the rules, we find ourselves in a position to possibly misadminister, for a lack of better terms, that funding. Because most cases, when you put $1 of federal funding in with any other source, under most cases, that funding becomes federal funding. So I'm getting timed out here, I can see that. So with that said, I just respectfully ask the commission to put the brakes on, get the heads of these people together so that you know the facts before the commission moves forward. And as a body representing the citizens of Broadwater County, it just makes common sense to do so. Thank you. And any questions? I'd be glad to answer.
Any other public comment on this? Public comment? No more public comment? All right. We will close this public hearing and enter our regularly scheduled meeting. Next on the agenda is the resolution decision to submit a TSEP application to replace the bridges. And this, of course, is what we have been talking about. We have a deadline to get this done by March. We do have next Monday if you two want to table it. I do think that some of the concerns that we heard are certainly warranted, and I think there's certainly things we can do as a commission to address them. One is answering Dwayne's idea that we start bringing all the players together to meetings instead of having silos of information. We need one gathering to get that, and we need it consistent, monthly at the very least. We used to have those in the mornings, and we need to resume that. This particular grant, and Tim, you can certainly get a copy of this so that you can read it and understand, but this is actually not going to spend any taxpayers' dollars. The match is 50%, excuse me, 15,000 at the most. This isn't a solid number, it's just a planning grant so that there can be some research into these particular bridges, but that'll be covered by MBAC on behalf of Broadwater County, and then the rest is by TSEP. Tim, you called it taxpayer dollars. That isn't the case, and there does need to be some research into where those come from, but it is not encompassed under tax dollars. That's very wide, very broad, and unfortunately pretty inaccurate. So what this is a matching grant for the big grant, the FEMA grant that Dwayne was talking about. This, actually, if you read into the document, Alternatives being considered at this point include a no action alternative. Replace of all the crossings with concrete bridge structures with cast-in-place abutments, replace with concrete bridge structures with prefabricated abutments, and replacement with steel bridge structures. When Sean was here, he talked about the fact that 2 of these would be coming off and changing Clopton Lane, doesn't need a bridge, and Lower Deep Creek is gonna be covered, as we've already heard. So this is really addressing Carson Lane and Lightning Barn Lane. Before you were on the commission, Franklin, we met with landowners on Carson Lane in 2011, and we looked at the flooding that they were experiencing because there's just too much silt in the culverts to handle the water, and that's why it was flooding. It was literally going around.
So they're not big
So-
enough to handle it.
Excuse me?
They're not big enough to handle it.
Exactly, that's why we're addressing bridges and
There's
looking at
silt in there.
alternatives.
I don't believe there's silt in there.
That's exactly right, yep, and that's what we addressed, that's what we've been talking about with these. So the question is, do you want to address this? This would be a match at no cost to the county citizens for the big FEMA grant, and it would not duplicate funding, it would merely take care of 2 bridges and possibly some mitigation for Clopton. And of course, we've all had copies of the grant. Now, what say you as a board?
I'd say the do nothing part on it.
Well, we're either going to table it to next week. If we do nothing, we are not gonna do anything for those bridges, Franklin, and you can talk to those citizens.
Oh, no, that ain't so.
Yes, it
There's-
is.
Those
You need to
bridges
know
were in
the
the planning
facts.
stage. Am I not right, Dwayne?
They are.
So, and talk about duplication, and actually, a lot of this is be duplication, just, like I said earlier this morning, the North Fork Bridge and the Frost Bridge, those have been taken care of.
They're
One by
not
the-
in here, Franklin.
Basically, it is. And like
Franklin,
the
you're
Clopton Bridge.
confused. You
I'm-
are confused with the big FEMA grant and this little grant that Sean talked to us about that is going to address 2 bridges, Carson and Lightning Barn. If there's anything to be done, and you and he talked one-on-one, if there's anything to be done with Clopton, you are only looking at mitigation and riprapping. And he
Cash.
said, yes, that price is going to come way down. This is a planning grant. This is to investigate what the best option is. That's it. And it does not involve North Fork because that's already being done by MDT. So it's just 2 bridges, Carson and Lightning Barn. Now, if you guys would like to table that's fine. If you want to vote on it now, that's fine.
It has to be done this month, does it not?
It does. Next Monday is our deadline, or else we lose it and we don't get any work done on those bridges at all. And we don't get to use this money that is $0 of Broadwater County citizens towards a match of the big FEMA grant.
That's
So-
correct, it's already in that first proposal.
Excuse me?
I said it's already, those bridges are already connected in that first FEMA proposal.
Right, and this is how we're gonna pay for it. Free of charge to Broadwater County citizens
Oh.
and a match to the big
I know you're
FEMA
getting
grant.
free of charge all the time.
Franklin,
We,
can you show us where that's different?
I don't think we need any of this, because there's enough on this, whatever that, 1.3 or whatever that original grant was, and I think Dwayne answered it there, and that, all these different things will be changed, there's a bunch of those, private ones that we probably won't get, involved with, if they even go.
So you just wanna say right now, I give up? Is that what you're saying?
As far as asking for this other grant, yes,
And why?
because we don't need it, the way I feel.
Do you wanna talk
do.
to those citizens and tell them we don't need anything for that flooding of 2011?
More on that, or check it out?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
All right, okay.
So what say you as a board? Do you wanna vote on it now, and go with what we have as far as information, or do you wanna table it by 1 week?
I think we can table it by 1 week.
Okay, is that fine with you, Franklin?
That's fine with me.
All right, we will table this till next week. As this is a issue that is of significant public interest, Dwayne, if you have another comment, that is more than fine.
Well, I was just gonna say, the letter that we all received from Mike indicated of the 3 bridges, of course, the ones you've already pointed out, Laura, the North Fork Bridge is out of the question. But he also indicated there are the 3 bridges, and that, of course, was Carson Lane, Cotton Lane, and of course, Lightning Barn Road Bridge. And he indicated 3, but you said 2. Do you have some information I'm unfamiliar with?
Yes.
Okay.
When he was here with us just 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
he talked specifically about Clompton Lane and said at that time, it doesn't need much more than rip wrapping. In fact, he and Franklin talked at length,
Okay.
just the 2 of them, for about 15 minutes. And that price will come way down. The problem is we don't have the money to cover Carson or Lightning Barn. So
Okay.
without this grant,
Okay.
they're not gonna get done.
Yeah.
The money for those bridges would be a match for the big FEMA grant.
So in other words, there's 3, but one has really no expense, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're really, and that's what he refers to in that no action, be
Okay.
no action on the MDT bridge, and then there would be very little action on Clopton. It's really just the other 2 that we're looking at, and this would be the funding for those 2. Tim?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Tim Ravendall. I'd just like to reiterate a concern that I have, which is if we look at the connection that's been pointed out in the bridges as being included in the original mitigation assessment with the FEMA grant. And of course, I understand we're looking at a grant to facilitate the matching funds that are required to get that money. My concern is because we really don't know what a current assessment is. We really don't know what the matching grant funds needed are. At one time, they were 400 and X amount of $1,000 for the county to come up with. It may not be nowhere near that. And so, again, I respectfully ask that, you know, and we have a week to get more detail, but we need to be very careful in what we're committing ourselves to in funding when we really don't know what we're buying.
And I'm gonna say you're 100% right on that, Tim. We have 2 options.
Wow.
One is to shoot from the hip and just run off, and the other one is to actually plan, to look at the details, to figure out what's needed, to look at the cost, to cover things as we can through alternative sources of funding. The total for this has already come down because of planning. So that's what we're doing today. We're talking about planning, so we don't just shoot from the hip and spend tremendously more money. The planning is about saving money so that we do things smart, so we don't just do something like build a bridge at Clopton Lane that isn't needed, so that we look at rip wrapping instead. The original plan doesn't have rip wrapping at Clopton, it has a bridge. So the planning is allowing us to save money. That's what this is about. It's about evaluating the situation, getting the facts, and then going to adding it or subtracting it from the initial plan on the FEMA grant. Some of those things are gonna come off. It's just like anything you do. You go to the store knowing that you're gonna be putting an add-on on your house. You price it out as a 10 by 10 and you figure out you just don't have enough money to cover it and you really don't need that much space, so you end up doing a 4 by 8. That's what we're doing with
Right.
planning, and that's what this grant is all about.
I understand that, Madam Chair. Maybe a follow-up.
Sure.
Thank you for the lecture. I would really like to just reiterate the fact that we don't know, and when you plan, you have some things that you need to base your plan on, which are solid and accountable. That brings us back to the accountability. In the discussion at the hearing that's ended and now the consequent moving forward on adopting a resolution on this particular planning grant, do we have, as citizens, know who is going to be doing this planning assessment? Is this going to be under the DES coordinator? Is this going to be under floodplain coordinator? Is this going to be under an outside firm? You know, who is actually going to put the boots on the ground and what is that cost in the planning going to be? I mean, we can certainly just go ahead and throw some numbers out there for what we're seeking, but what is it actually going to cost?
And that's all part of the plan. It's in here. We've been using DES, we've been using FEMA, we've been using engineers, we've been using FWP, we've been using citizens who have the most knowledge of anybody on what's needed. That's what this is about, Tim. It isn't a shoot from the hip document, and if you wanna come and read it, I think it would really help. But that's all we're doing is putting together a plan to evaluate what's needed so we can spend your money much more frugally and responsibly.
Thank
That's
you.
all it is. And this is nothing but a complement to the big FEMA grant. It has nothing to do other than taking some things off through alternative sources of funding.
Madam
So,
Chairman?
Yes, and this is a huge issue. We three have been immersed in this and still have a rudimentary understanding. The real officials who know so many more of the pieces are Sean and Mike, and unfortunately neither could be here today. Yes,
In that letter from Mike Conkey that was written by Sean, he indicates that it's gonna cost the county approximately $100,000 for this restoration project of these bridges. Is that assessment tied into what we're saying here concerning, is that paying for that $100,000, so to speak, that's coming from the county coffers? Or is that something that's coming outside of that information, that planning?
we're actually trying to get it outside of the planning. What we're trying to do is use grants to fund these and use grants to fund the match. That just because we may have a plan that says those bridges should be built, if we don't have the funding, we're not gonna do it. And at no point during the whole FEMA process has the county said, we're going to pay. What we have said is, you figure out a way to take care of this mitigation through FEMA, through DES, and we will work with you. But we told Bill on day one, we're not coming up with $300,000 to $400,000 as a match. You're gonna have to find that through these kinds of planning grants. So that's where we're at with that.
So that would help pay for this $100,000 for those things?
Exactly, yeah. And they do that on purpose to help smaller counties like us that don't have a lot of extra money sitting around. They give us the ability to do these kinds of planning things because it does save money, but it also gives us the ability to have matches for these grants because they know we can't come up with 300,000 for bridges. So that's kind of the reason for it.
And no real strings attached.
Always strings attached, yes.
And
Yeah.
you're familiar with what strings are attached then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is there's two choices. One is we let the flooding continue. Two is we go ahead and work within the parameters, the strings attached that they set. Or three, we pay it for it ourselves, which, the citizens are just not gonna go for that. So that's why we work so much with grants.
Well, the planning's important because that's what my little sermon was all about, is planning.
Exactly.
And so that's important to me. So if it's done properly and conceived properly, fugally, and we get the job done. And that's kind of where I was coming from.
Absolutely. And I think we're all on the same page. It's just maybe some of us are on a different road, but I truly believe that regardless of the road they may be on, we all want the same thing at the end, and that is to mitigate any future flooding so that we don't have what we had in 2011. So, anything else from the board? All right. We will move on, and we will table this till next week. Brenda, we're a little bit behind schedule, but thanks for coming in. I understand you need to talk to us about the horses.
I got the perfect guy here. I do, I need to talk to you about
The equine facility?
the equine facility. John Walsh is back there, he's been awesome. Equine and goat. You guys know the goat herd group. We didn't have any newbies, did we?
Not yet.
I haven't been up there today, I've been busy with other.
Are they bred?
Yeah. Wait,
Oh,
we're not kidding today, but we have kids.
Right.
We have twins,
What are the names?
Winnie and Brandon.
Named after who?
Winnie and Brandon. First they were Winnie and Brandon. We initially named them Winnie and Brandon, but then we found out The guys were gals, so we had to rename them Winnie and Brandy.
The biology lesson there for the sheriff's
Well,
department.
you know, they're only this tall, so it wasn't until they got picked up. I'm like, we need to.
Does mom have enough milk for them both?
Yeah, she does, she's doing good with them, isn't she?
She is.
They're cute. But I did not budget to take care of 29 horses,
Didn't
5
you?
goats, and 2 kids.
Really?
No, I didn't.
What have you been doing?
It's not in my budget.
I understand every mare out there was full too.
Yeah, we probably have
You said,
2, 3,
They claim there's 5 bred out there.
yeah, I would guess
but there was,
3.
unless the other 2 or 4, there was, I guess, 5 studs out there of them just running with them, so.
7 total, isn't there?
So,
Counting the jack.
Right.
Yeah, there's 7 studs.
Are the horses starting to look better?
Well, we see them every day,
It's hard to tell when you go out there and see them twice a day, you know?
yeah.
But they are doing better. There's been people that come out there that hasn't seen them for a week, and they do look better, and they do look better. Some of them it's gonna take a long time.
Oh,
Some of them are picking up right away,
Yeah.
but they do look better. The worst part of it is their coats and one thing, and it was in such bad shape that when they lay down, of course, they've got long hair, and when they lay down, everything sticks to them, and they really look bad.
So far, we've got 3 of their hooves trimmed. And we have another farrier, hopefully he can come down this week and trim up some more. The vet, she's been out there 3 or 4 times.
What did she say about them?
I was only out there twice, she said we were looking better. The 2 we have in the barn, we keep 2 of them in the barn because they're so thin. They're still very dehydrated. So, but that's why I'm here, is I didn't budget it. And I did receive a hay grant, as I told you last week. So she sent that right to Les. I also received information last week from another guy. But I don't know, I have to talk to the county attorney when she's in about, before I can give him the information he's requesting. And I think that grant will be quite a bit larger. So,
What did she say she's gonna do with them all, the county attorney?
I don't know, we've got 5 of them that we know they have owners. So I'm hoping to get rid of 5 of them. Well, 4.5 is what we can say.
Right.
The donkey, it's about that tall. Winter,
And he has a home.
yeah. You wouldn't have no problem finding him a home.
Once he
Is he cute?
Oh, yeah. It's like a cotton ball with legs and eyes and ears.
Elaine would take him anyway.
I would take him. But he has a little girl that runs, I guess it's a her. Yeah, she's pretty cute.
I've got grandkids that could take her in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. They would love her. She was cute. But that's why I'm here. I definitely did not budget for this. I'm gonna continue with the grants that I've been working on. And I have this Jane Heath, she's gonna help me through the ASPCA, apply for another grant. You have to apply through a nonprofit organization for their grants, but they're walking us through it. So, and I brought this for you. She's gonna work, if anybody wants to make a donation, they just have to put Townsend or Broadwater County under their donation.
Yeah.
So, she's been wonderful to work with, very helpful.
When will we know about some of the grants coming through?
Oh, the one already came through, and that was for $600. And the other one, I just received the email from him yesterday, but I want to talk to the county attorney, because he's asking for information. Basically, he wants a report. And he is actually an attorney. It's a group of attorneys, and they're offering assistance to the county attorney if she wants it.
Nice.
That's what they do.
You know, the guy that had all those dogs in Helm, they prosecuted him.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're gonna hear too. It's just a matter of getting everything. I mean, our case file is already that thick.
On his situation.
Yeah.
pass on to you. I received a call from a lady that lives in the north end of the county to say, good going. She was so tickled, and she's been going out there and brushing the horses down or loving on them, whatever. But,
Vicki,
yes, it is.
she's been doing a wonderful job. We've had great volunteers that have come out and helped us. John's been just awesome.
I've heard that actually from several people, Tom, thank you very much.
And we've been very fortunate, very fortunate.
What is the hay bill dig?
You know, today, I don't know.
I don't have any idea.
He doesn't,
We feed about 400 pounds morning and night. And there's some of them that would take a little more, but we have to go real slow with what you feed them. We started out fairly small and we're just building up because they just can't handle it. They haven't had anything to eat.
it's been about 4 times, well, just under 4 times a week, so. I think the last week's, almost all of the last week's is paid for,
Good.
so. And so far, the grants haven't been too difficult to fill out, so,
That helps.
yeah. And Jane's gonna help me with that ASPCA one.
And now to pay for feed.
Feed and possibly, I had a vet come down last week that had checked a few of them prior to this, so he came down and reevaluated, which is will be very helpful in this case. Cause he felt he did it on the scale, and then redid the scale of the horse, really depreciated. So, and it was almost exactly a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one.
Well, when you last seen the horse,
Yeah.
so, and that cost $140, but
You don't have any choice.
that's just it. But so far, the farriers and a lot of it's been done volunteer. The one guy came all the way from Power,
Really?
so I took him down and bought him lunch and filled his gas tank up. I figured if he can come all the way from Power to that area, I can at least do that for him.
Mm-hmm. And do we have more coming?
And he'd be glad to come back down. Very good with him.
And it seems to me like the public is really tickled that you've got the horses there at the grounds and
Yeah.
taking care of them.
So, but that's why I'm here.
So when's the bake sale?
Can't do nothing with them right now, they're evidence.
It looks to me like we're gonna have to come up with some money somehow.
Well, that's, unfortunately, I hate to come to you, but I didn't budget for them. They're not a line item.
No, funny how that
Nothing
works.
expected either.
Yeah, there's a couple of things, I don't know if you guys have done any talking or thinking about this, and certainly we can discuss some different options, but, a couple of things, I know you'll have to do this anyway for the case, but if you could get us a guesstimation, a report on what you expect that you will have to pay through the end of the fiscal year for vets, farriers, meds, for the horses if they need them, I would imagine some of them do, feed, that kind of thing, even aside from the grants, what a guesstimate is. What we can do is include a line item in the emergency funding and use that for feeding horses, taking care of the goats, the whole thing. One thing that Ricky had said is if we want this as an emergency situation and we can do the 2 mil emergency levy, I would rather not. I think we can handle this with a PILT. We have about 350,000 still in PILT. And what I would like to suggest is based on whatever your guesstimate is at the end of the year, that we just put some PILT money in an emergency line item and you use that as you need to for the horses. If that's okay with the rest. Now, we can't do it today because it's not on the agenda, but if that's okay with you guys, we could go ahead
I
and set
think that's
that
a
up.
place to start, have a budget to see where we're gonna go. You know, there's no doubt that you don't have an idea how long they'll be there.
Yeah, I don't, it all depends on how quickly,
Yeah, I think it's gonna go far beyond June 30th, but at least for now,
yeah.
we can just work on that, and then we'll be getting into the budget season, we can address how much further we have to go, starting July 1st. But if that's okay with you guys,
I'm fine
or
with
if you
that.
have any better ideas, I'm certainly open, it's just.
And I know we're good through
Uh-huh.
May, it's into May, with the rodeo grounds, but then we're gonna start having openings and stuff.
I think we can probably get by, I've gotta make some phone calls, but I think we can probably get by till possibly as late as 1st of July. And then we very well might start running up against it, of course, with the rodeo being the 24th and 5th. So we can keep them there for quite a while. And there again, as you guys know, we have the lease, but we're not charged. Unless it goes to where they have to pay restitution, and then we will submit a bill at that time. Because I think it's only fair that if they're gonna have to pay restitution, I don't know whether you can get it, but if it comes to that where they have to pay restitution or start paying for the hay bill, the vet bills and things like that, then it's only fitting that they pay for the extra boarding costs.
Mhm.
They're the ones that caused this. It's nothing that the county caused, it's nothing that we caused, it's stuff that they have to do.
Where can they go, John, after,
That many horses, the only place you might take them is down to the stockyards at Three Forks. That would be the best alternative. There again, the cost of the deputy, or them paying, you have to hire them to take care of them, if that's the case. Or the deputies have to run down there and feed them one thing and another. So there again, that's an added cost to take down there that far. And it's not just one trip, you can't take them all in one trip. The mares and studs and the little ones, they've all got to go separate. I mean, it took, 8 trailers, or 8 trips, 2 trailers, 3 trailers each. It took.
Yeah.
3 trailers, took 4 trips to get them all there. Just from there to here.
do we know when the mares are due to foal?
We have no idea, we're watching them. But then again, you know, and the worst part of it is they're in such bad shape. You take a look at them, they're supposed to foal, but did they catch? Is it just a worm belly because they're so bad eating their own fecal manure and one thing and another? You know, that's just things you just don't know until you get further along with it.
Are they gonna be awarded to Broadwater County in time, and they could be sold as a sheriff's sale?
That we don't know yet. Well,
We have a lot of questions at this point.
It's just
Not a
like
lot
the
of
goats,
answers.
I mean, we knew that they looked like they were
Right,
bred.
they did. The goats look like they're pregnant. Some of the mares do, some of them don't, that are supposed to be pregnant. And being in such bad shape and one thing and another, my only hope was that they just didn't catch. I mean, they were with the studs and whatnot, so
And how many goats are there?
7 now.
7 now.
Which, there's a couple of them that they look like they're ready to pop at any time. I mean, the best thing is that they just haven't started making a bag yet. When they start making a bag, then first thing you know, you could have 4 more goats.
And
That's a
we
minimum.
showed up one morning and was like, two extras, somebody else dumped theirs on us. No.
One thing you might do too in your estimate for us is include what it would be to board through the end of the year with the rodeo club, even though it's being donated right now.
Can we charge what they were charging out there to work?
I don't know if that'd be with these guys.
Sure, why not?
There you go. Without charge.
Too much.
Well, that's that after the machine goes off.
Quite a bit.
But yeah, we'll make sure that you guys aren't holding the bag, so it's on this.
I'll get those amounts to you, Mr. Walsh.
All right. Thank you. Anything else
Thanks,
for
Brenda.
Brenda on the subject? All right. We also
Oh, I
have.
do have one question.
Yeah.
Is Wynn healing up from his horse escapade?
I think so. It's just gonna take time.
Good.
That's why we had to make so many trips, is some of them don't play well with the others.
Oh, I'm sure.
Some of them we couldn't even get halters on.
Really? They're flat out wild horses then.
Well, I would say wild, but.
Spoiled.
Young studs, you can't hardly handle them.
Well, that one mare we couldn't get a halter on
Right.
either. That Jack took when I couldn't walk.
Yeah, down too fast. And Ted's pretty good size.
Yeah. And it's not a big Jack, is it?
No.
But he's ornery when you get a lead rope on him.
And anything more? All right. Bill Duty, come on up.
Good afternoon, Bill.
Very well.
How are you?
Good. You're not so good news. Madam Chair, other commissioners or fellow commissioners. My name's Bill Duty. I'm the president of what's called the Lower Deep Creek Drainage System. The reason I'm president, I got appointed a number of years back by the county attorney and other commissioners when I found that a pipe had collapsed and backed up a bunch of water on the Lower Deep Creek Drainage System. This system is out by Ray Wallace's, Bruce's, into town. Jack Farm Road. It goes out through Les Shipman's, my place, Aunt Nick's, and it goes to the mill. Okay. We got a problem. We got a big time problem. Okay. This wind that came in October filled that ditch up with tumbleweeds. You can't burn it. You can't do anything. It's in the ditch and they're soaked. Okay. That ditch was put in 1950. I found this study, I'm putting this in, okay? That ditch was put in to drain groundwater from the south end of Townsend. It consisted of about 1,300 acres. The whole project was a little over 2,000 acres. But the port from the Montana ditch into town, there was about 1,300 acres there. Okay. This ditch right now is plugging off. The only way, I had Mike Conkey out there, I've talked to Mary Alice Upton, and I took Laura out there. And what's happening, we got sort of a bad scenario coming at us. We do have a window of opportunity. And that is, right now the weather's been helping us. We haven't had the big runoff. We had that deal out Dry Creek that breached there in the Broadwater. Okay, what we got coming at us is this here is an attack from down under. This is raising groundwater. That's definitely going to affect everybody in this town, especially the south side of town. Okay, and Jack Farm Road. Anybody, I think, pretty well aware of the water condition over on the south end of town. You basically go down about 2 feet and you're in water. Okay, right now the ground's saturated. Okay, we haven't started seeing the runoff in the river. We haven't seen the runoff from Deep Creek yet. They haven't put water in the Broadwater, and they haven't put water in the Montana ditch. That's all coming up real fast. Okay. The pipe that they put in on the south side of town, I think it's an 8-inch drain pipe. If I'm not, Franklin, you might have a better idea on that. I think it's an 8-inch
This
drain.
last one they put in, you mean?
Well, the last one and then the one that runs down Harrison by Doug's house. Okay. That thing, over the course of time, that could be silted in. I don't know if it's run off of a pump or if it's natural. I don't know. But we're gonna have a lot of water coming up. unless we do something with that ditch, because there's about 7 pipes out there, okay? There's 5, about, let's just say 5.5 miles of ditch, drain ditch that's out there, that has had nothing done with it since 1950 when it was built. It is silted in. I have never in my lifetime seen what's out there right now. And all you have to do is when you go home, look right down Les Shipman's down that warm water ditch, right at the base of this hill. Okay, that's what you're looking at. And all that stuff is waterlogged and it's getting more and more pressure. I watch that ditch every day because it flows right by my house. Okay, it's fluctuating. It's starting to come up now. I went over, drove out to, out by Norman Bruce's. I talked to Norman, Chuck Hahn, Les Shipman, Aunt Nick. And what that's gonna do, all that farm ground out there, you're not gonna be able to do too much farming, because I can tell you what happened to Les here a few years back. He was farming just off of the house. The ditch was high because of weeds and, you know, stuff like that before we broke it loose. That's when we had you come out and clean out that end. He buried his tractor out there probably 2 months before he could get out to get the tractor out. Okay. I went down, luckily what I told you, Laura, that I thought this report had been purged. Okay, I can't thank Justin Meisner enough because he found it. Okay, I'll read you a little deal that shows you a little bit on the ground. Okay, the town has changed. You gotta remember this was done in 1947. Okay, the town has changed. It's went out there. They built Reagan Addition and all these different additions. Okay, the town might have changed, but the ground didn't. You're in a river basin. Okay, here's the need for this project. The Soil Conservation Service surveyed and study of the water table within the area indicated a definite need for the proposed drainage system. There was 38 test wells, which were established and water level readings made at intervals. Checking the movement of groundwater indicated that only 47 acres within the area had a water table below the depth of 5 feet. And like I said, this is like 1,280 acres. Okay. 646 acres had a water table of 2 feet to 5 feet. And the remaining 587 acres, the water table is above the depth of 2 feet. Okay, when we get this runoff, and I hope it don't happen, okay, water table in this town is coming up. You're gonna have a whole bunch of houses over there that are gonna become unlivable real fast. Okay, the other scenario on this, you got the mill, one of the largest employers in the county. This ditch also feeds their fire suppression ponds. Now, the bad part of that is when I got appointed president of this ditch, went out there and I was the ditch writer for the Montana ditch. And I was running that, and over on Jack Farm Road, you can come down and your ditches are fairly close together. Well, when that pipe collapsed out by Roundman's out there, okay, I was walking through there and all of a sudden I look over and I'm like, oh, okay, just from duck hunting out there. That ditch is probably 14 feet deep and at its widest point it's probably 30 to 40 feet wide. It was brim to brim. And as far as you could see back toward Linda White's, and that was just right off the Jack Farm Road by a couple hundred yards. So I came and got a hold of the commissioners. We went out. Here's some of the scenarios that we came up with. Okay, if that breeze, beside raising the groundwater, okay, if that happened to break loose, you just put down a lot of water down this ditch. Okay, it crosses Jack Farm Road. It would either take the county road out, or the way the ditch and the structure and everything is, it's shooting it right down into all those houses out where it used to be Ethel O'Hearn's, down by Marvin Love's, and that side of town's gonna take the brunt of that. Okay, if it does happen to go through, we can catch it and it goes through. And it goes by my place and it goes by out by Anthony's. Okay, we can diffuse a lot of that water, but at the same point in time, if that water happened to reach the mill closed the ditch down and put in undersized pipe to feed their ponds. The natural flow of the water goes right where they put their bank of transformers. If that water hit that transformer, it will, or these transformers, it will take the power out from Helena, Townsend, Three Forks, to a tune of, back then, they were quoting us right around $26 million. Okay. We do have a window of opportunity. I have went around, I have located dump trucks, excavators. The only way you're gonna get at this is excavation with an excavator, because some of these ditches are just deep and it's just to reach out in there, okay? The thing there is, this thing's gonna cost a lot of money, okay? When that ditch was put in, everybody, when that was involved, was dead. Mary Ellis actually said, God, I need to talk to some old guy. Well, I'm the old guy, me and Chuck Hahn and Norman Bruce. And I met with Norman today. Chuck apologized, he was gonna be here this afternoon, same with Norman. Norman and Andy were heading down to Utah, and Chuck had a thing came up in Helena. Okay, we can put this equipment together now, and I've also talked to Les on this. We can put the thing together right now, okay? And that's to ward this off, or we can wait. As this keeps plugging off and plugging off, that groundwater in this town, and like Justin said, there's already been cases where they've already got water in basements and stuff over on the south side of town. Okay, and we haven't even started seeing the runoff this. Deep Creek feeds that basin, the Missouri feeds that basin. And like I said, when they put the water in the Montana ditch and also the Broadwater, it just starts coming up. We wait that long, and that's coming up real shortly. We do have a window just on the fact of what the weather has done. The weather it's cold right now, and the snowfall is fairly hard up in the mountains, to the point to where we got some time. Not a lot, but we got some time. Okay. Right now, maybe the best thing that happened to the county and also to the city is when this thing happened, I guess up Dry Creek, in the county declared Broadwater County a disaster area. If this isn't a disaster, I don't know what it is. I hope to God it don't happen, but I've been here long enough and watched that deal go that we got problems, folks. And all you gotta do is to go out there and take a look at this. Like I said, we gotta get the water moving. And we're still gonna have high water, but with that plug, you come in to where you're gonna have water coming over the top. You could have it if it breaches, because all these old culverts are all undersized. They're like 30-inch culverts from 1950. Out by Brown Man, some of them are collapsed, okay? Other than that, those tumbleweeds are just packing and packing and pushing because they're getting more and more water pressure, and they're just packing in. Okay, that's gonna start cutting off. You can already see coming out by Linda White's on the mounds on the water out there just below the old kickbush shed out there. Okay, you notice the difference in them. They ain't real dry, and we're already in our ground saturated. But this would alleviate a lot of problems. Like I said, I called Mike, Chuck. He came out and we were talking about a different subject, but then this came around, and I said, who do I get a hold of? And he goes, first off, probably Mike Conkey, if not Sean Higley. So I got a hold of Mike, brought him out, and then I was talking to Doug, because I know when I flood irrigated out there, Doug has a sump pump. Riceland's built their house out there, and they started with the basement, and I'm flood irrigating, not knowing the next day they come down and they have a swimming pool. And so they had to fill their basement in and go with the crawl space. Okay, that was when that 8-inch drain pipe was in. Okay, with what, you know, to say what would be the easiest way of going about this, I don't know. Now I do, and like I told Laura, and I told Mike, and I went down and talked to Mary Alice, and I brought her up to date. Then I went down and found this, okay. Justin also has a photograph of that end of town that was done in either 30s or 40s. It's a lake. Mary Alice said that when Clint Holland was the mayor, before she was the mayor, he was deathly concerned about the water in the south end of town. Well, you see how far the town's grown. Because remember when you and I were kids, you know, all you gotta do is figure out who the last house is out on town. And it's way past that right now. And I did tell Laura, my background, I'm retired now, but my background was, before I was with the highway department on this, I put together, I dissected mountains. Okay, I'm very used to getting, working with government agencies, engineers, equipment companies, everything like that. I will spearhead this if you would so like it, because you guys are gonna be busy enough as it is around the other parts of the county. Okay, like I said, we can put equipment out on there now, but we don't have no money. Huh?
Who actually owns that?
That,
my
Elaine?
question, too. That's my question too.
Okay. When that ditch was put in, soil conservation put it in. Okay, it went through Ray Wallace's, Bruce's, well, let me tell you, you probably, no, you can have some names here.
Stanley.
Okay, Ray Wallace, Norm Bruce, Chris Byler, John Stanley, Edgar Dawson, Harvey McIntyre. Okay, they're all dead. That ditch was like a forgotten ditch for as long as I ever knew. At the time, Dad tried to get water right off of that ditch. He was told that water was all Bureau of Rec. Bureau of Rec goes, whoa, what, you know, no. Why would we want to have anything to do with a private ditch?
Because they could see the writing on the wall, what was coming down the pipe.
That's coming down the pipe. Well, here last year in August, and I'm getting copies of the letter, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks just bid into the program. Because they sent to junior water users that had a water rate that was later than theirs, is that they were taking all that water for the river. Okay. The only one that superseded that was Bruce. And theirs was, water rate was 1972. I think Linda Ray Wallace was 74, 75. The Fish and Game was in between that. So, and that was to, at first what Dad was told was the water was to be used for the dike system. Okay, because it was supposed to flow into the Missouri, and that was what that was for. Then the other was, I guess it went to the landowners. But as that, through the course of time, land changed, nobody knew. The only reason I found out about what happened on the lower deep pit drainage ditch, I was the unfortunate son of a gun that had to be walking down there and see this when it was plugged. And that's when John Flynn, Steve McCullough, Tom Hensley, and I think Irwin Riss at that time, all of a sudden appointed me president of this ditch because I was a landowner where the ditch went through. Okay, so to say who really owns this ditch, Franklin, I don't think anybody has a clue.
You know,
That's gonna be over and above the problem that we got. It don't matter who owns this ditch, because nobody out there's got no money. You know, nobody's got the money to do this. There is no way. So it can either sit there, because everybody will just leave it as it is because they can't irrigate out, they can't do nothing out of it. Let her set. Well, as it sets, this goes beyond ownership on this at all. This comes into what's gonna happen to this lower end of this town. It gets way past this, because this right now has potential to where you're just making the south end of that town unlivable. That's your streets, that's your sewer, that's everything. Anybody's got septic tanks, you got a private well, you got that, and all of a sudden that water goes into basements, goes into crawl spaces, you start getting electrical fires, you name it. I don't know, I'm painting bad scenarios and I hope it don't happen. But this, right now, we have not seen a snow year like this in a long, long time. And we haven't even started seeing this runoff. And when this runoff hits this basin, it ain't like a regular flood. This ain't gonna be pretty. I mean, there's no real, there isn't a good picture that I can paint other than jump in and start cleaning this ditch. Because if you don't clean it and you don't start opening that up and start draining off some of this groundwater, and at the same time, this old ditch is silted in over the years. So you're looking at cleaning this ditch because it's the only way. You saw what it is. You're not burning it. I had people go, well, why don't you plug it off? Let it dry out. You can't because the groundwater's still there. The groundwater's up. So it's just saturated with this stuff, and like I said, it's plugged. And I've been watching the levels, like in front of the house, and I'm watching out on Les's, but the key is start going down Jack Farm Road, and you start seeing the water coming up there. And this goes out past, there's all kinds of fingers that are out there. Now, we can do the county, and we can do the city a long-term piece of good. And that is by cleaning that out. For the rest of our lifetime, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about water like affecting towns. But the way as it is right now, we got a big time problem. And I'm not talking just as you guys as a board, I'm talking us as a town and all those people living out there, Brecker included, everybody on that side of town, that's where that water's gonna be built. Okay? And not a pretty picture. So I want you guys to be made aware of this. Again, with everything that's going on, Mary Ellis has got me on the docket to go in front of the city the 1st. And I'm gonna do the same thing there as what I did here. Make everybody aware, offer the services. But as far as monetary wise, that's the whole thing. If we don't come up with some plan, whether it's through the flood disaster program or what, and work on the ditch, other than that, you're basically just gonna sit and hope to hell this thing don't happen.
You know, Bill,
Because it won't move.
you know, the state's claiming the water. Anytime there's water, the state claims they have all the water.
Mhm.
So I would say it's just,
They're involved in it, yeah, that's the whole thing, that ties us in to where there's gotta be something available to do this. The deal on, we don't have a lot of time. Because if all of a sudden this weather changes, we get some 70-degree weather and this stuff starts coming. It's coming, that river's coming, everything. The ditches are scheduled to go in April.
The 15th.
15th of April, that's right. And on that, this is, like I said it before, and that is that windstorm that came through in October. I've never seen it in my lifetime. And I've never seen this ditch. I mean, I've duck hunted that ditch to death growing up, and I have never, ever seen it as it is now. It's bad. It's really bad, and it's plugging, and there ain't nothing you can do with this stuff. And like I said, encourage all you guys, all the citizens, everybody, drive out that highway and look down both sides, just as you're going up that hill by the Forest Service right there. And then you'll start seeing what I'm saying. There's nowhere for this stuff to go, other than it's gonna either start going out into the ground, or I mean on top of the ground, or it's already in the groundwater and it's raising. And, once that river comes, once, Deep Creek starts rolling and all that, I think at that time, we're gonna do it either early or we're gonna do it late. And when we do it late, you're gonna have a lot of people over in that side of town, that south side of town, looking for some answers, because they don't have no place to live. And that'll affect your streets, your sewer, the whole gamut. So it's not a pretty picture. So it's up to you guys to, what you guys wanna do. And, like I said, I can have boots on the ground this week. And we can start on this. And, it's one of these that Norman got an excavator sitting right there. Okay, the other part that we gotta try to figure out on this, if we clean this out, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with all this stuff? You're gonna have to let it dry a little bit before you can truck it out of there. Now, maybe we can truck it to where, who does the trees?
Pat
Huh?
Blackenberg. Pat Blackenberg.
Yep, where Pat takes his trees. Where we can dump this stuff and burn it at a later time.
I don't think they're gonna burn it, because there's gonna, if you're gonna be clean, there's gonna be a silt.
You're gonna, yes, that's the whole thing, Franco. You got silt, you got all this, but you're gonna have it to haul it out of there. Or if there's some small indentation that needs filled, fill it. But it's gonna blow again, and if you have, say you set all this stuff off, well, big storm comes and it's dried off, it's gonna blow back in. That's secondary, getting rid of this stuff right now. Biggest thing is unplugging pipes. Because right now, I've counted, and I think I might be conservative on this, at least 8 pipes that are basically plugged or in a state of collapse. And so I guess it's up to the county and the city to try to come up with a plan on what we can do on this thing. Because,
You know, if somebody steps in there and starts doing it, they'll probably have claim to it then. That's why I think, as long as the state's claiming the water thing, I think they better be involved.
oh yeah, without a doubt.
Because if, say the county went in there and started cleaning something, it's our responsibility then.
They're gonna let you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, then, it'd be strictly,
Yeah, no, that one, I'll tell you
Oh,
what,
yeah.
the best thing that happened, really, is when they sent out that letter, and
Yeah.
they claimed that water.
well, they always do anyway, they claim water in all these.
All these
It's
different
either-
places, and it's becoming worse and worse. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Mhm.
Okay, well, they're doing more and more of that. That was a godsend when that happened, because
I'd have you, what part of the state would it go to?
Fish Wildlife Park,
FWP.
Well, maybe so, but,
they're the ones that sent the letter. That'd be the place to start.
well, I guess so, because it's state water, so state, they'd just move it on up to the chain to whoever.
Mhm. Now, the thing again, I will volunteer my time on this to pursue this. Because, again, I'm gonna be going to Helena anyway, because I got asked to be the water commissioner for Deep Creek. And so I've got to go take classes and stuff like this on this. So I'm gonna be in there. I don't mind talking to these guys, okay? Because they're directly affected. You know, it's one of these, you're gonna lose revenue off of farming. If something happens at the mill, and there's a fire start, and they don't have enough water, okay, you're gonna have that problem. You got places over on the south side of town, they start getting water, they're gonna be looking for something, okay? And there isn't anybody, I don't think, that can afford flood insurance. If you saw what was going on in the paper down at Three Forks, on what they're going on. The other one avenue that we do have, as far as putting the money together for this, and that is where you guys declared this county a flood disaster area. Because if this isn't a flood, I don't know what it is. It ain't on the,